Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gearhart. I'm here with Arnie Rintzler with AWR Business Concepts. Hi, Arnie.
Hi, Elizabeth. How are you this morning?
Good. So tell us all about it.
I work with owners of companies in a variety of industries, and I can help anybody grow their business.
So we were talking before. So you work with entrepreneurs and small businesses.
Yes.
And the beauty, though, is that you have a system that works across any type of business. So it could be somebody selling toys to somebody selling a coaching business, right?
Yes, because what it is I work on the premise that my client is an expert in their business. I am an expert in how to maximize business.
So you find that there are concepts that work repeatedly. They're like basic concepts. So what kind of things do you tell your clients?
Well, it's not really telling my clients, it's asking my clients. And so that I start with every business really only does two things. And in a perfect environment, I would do this as a question and answer. But because of this environment, I will answer the question that I ask. The two things that every business does is they sell what they do and they do what they do. Think of an accountant. An accountant needs to sell his accounting services or her accounting services, or they will have no business. But then they need to be accountants and perform that businesses. So I always want to find out with somebody that wants to grow, what's the limitation? Is it sales or is it production? And then once we identify that, we work on breaking that limitation, and then we'll go to the next limitation because it will always go back and forth.
So do you have success stories you can talk about?
Absolutely. You know, I'd prefer for the moment not to mention names because I haven't cleared these. And if somebody wants to know the names, absolutely, I will give them. And they're people who love to talk about it because I've made a lot of friends. And on my website, which will be posted, there's about 20 letters of where people have said things that worked well. But I'd like to talk about my greatest success is I met three young guys that were doing somewhat under $1.5 million, and we began working together. And this past year, which is 4 or 5 years later, they've crossed 200 million. Now that is an absolute outlier for me. You know, it really doesn't happen, but it's fun to talk about. And then I have another long-term client that I met at, again, a little under $1.5 million. This year they will do 17 million. And then I have a lot of clients that in these times are holding their own. And so there's a few of them that I could talk about that are holding their own. And then what I've been most excited about is working with clients that in these times have discovered how to maximize what's happening in these times. For instance, I've changed my business that I really only want to work on Zoom. Or a Zoom platform, you know, a platform like Zoom, because I've discovered it's far more effective than for everybody. And that's what we're going to discover. We're going to discover that we're never going back to the way it was. And every crisis that we've been through does that. We keep what works best and only go back to those things we have to work back from. And so again, if I were working with a barber or a massage person, that touching is part of their business, right? We can't do that on Zoom. But I've discovered so many areas, as my clients have, where the limitation of physicality has opened up tremendous opportunity. And that's what I've been having the most success. And for me, it's been great fun doing that with clients.
That's important because everything that we hear says we will get another disaster in a few years. We don't know what it's going to be, what it's going to look like, but you should take what you learned from this one and make sure that you're ready for the next one, right?
Well, I'm kind of going beyond that in that, for instance, I really grew my business for lots of reasons by meeting people, meeting them, doing face-to-face meeting. I've also worked with people on the phone in different venues in different ways. But I have actually discovered that I am more effective in the Zoom environment than I am face-to-face. And so what that allows me is it opens up not only the New York metropolitan area, if I don't want to travel, it opens up the rest of the country.
Mhm.
And so I have been having sales meetings and consulting meetings with people that I never would have met prior to March 10th when we kind of went on lockdown. And I've discovered so many clients who are finding the same thing.
Right. So when you have your initial meeting with somebody on Zoom, what is the first thing that you talk about with a new client? Let's say I signed up with you and we're meeting for the first time. What's the first thing we would do together?
That's a good question, Elizabeth, and that will vary depending on the person. I have a number of structured ways that I go if structure is necessary, but I need to be flexible enough because I don't want a meeting to go where I want it to go. I want a meeting to go where the client wants it to go. And so I have certain things that are necessary in a business, and they revolve around 4 platforms, which are people, strategy, execution, and cash. Um, and then there are metrics. What are we counting? Priorities. What are our priorities? And then communication within the company. Those are major issues that I will use as a structured environment. But the first thing I want to know from somebody is, do they want to grow? And I've never yet met somebody that says, no, I don't want to grow. But I liken it to somebody that is not in great health. They're not old, but they're just not in great health because they haven't been taking care of themselves. And if I said, do you want to get in shape? Do you want to lose weight and get in shape? Absolutely. Terrific. We can create a diet and exercise program that'll work really well, but it involves change. Human beings don't relate well to change. They fear it, they resist it, they deny it. Well, growing a business is kind of the same. When I lay it out, for the most part, it is either, do I need to sell more? Do I need to produce more? And that's easy to determine. And then we identify, well, how do we break that barrier? Either selling more or producing more. That usually will involve change. It will usually involve, if it's a single entrepreneur, doing something different than you're doing it. If it's somebody that's got a going business, it may mean investment, either investment in production, investment in sales, or investment in a better website, investment in marketing. When somebody says to me, well, when I do more business, I'll invest more in my business. Well, that's violating a law of nature. Okay. I mean, did you ever hear, Elizabeth, of the law of the farm? And yeah, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but the law of the farm, well, you haven't. Okay. You can break in. The law of the farm really means, have you ever met a farmer that wanted to harvest without planting? Well, of course not. You must plant before you can harvest. Well, how many of us want to say, when we do more business, we'll invest in our business? That's violating a law. Investment must come before reward. Now, that gets into the 4th level of these decisions is cash. A business must have the cash to grow, to just function day to day. And if a business is unprofitable, they bleed cash. But a growing business also may not have enough cash because frequently we produce before we get paid. And that's where a company must have a viable source of lending or borrowing. In today's world, I have another saying, shortages of bread and milk there have been, but never money for a good idea. So if somebody's got a way to make money and do something, you can find a way to fund it.
And I think now maybe it's even a little easier if you have an idea to fund it, because it seems like there's all these government programs really encouraging it with what we're going through right now.
And that's the best thing about this. The government has figured it out. If we give people money, they will spend it. They will keep the economy going, and they will ultimately get it back in tax returns. And it does fly in the face of, if you run your house and continue spending more money than you and your husband bring in, oh, you could face disaster. Well, that's not the way countries work. So that whenever we say, well, we can't have debt, you're right. You personally, well, you need debt. I haven't met a whole lot of people that have paid cash for houses, and most of us don't pay cash for cars. So we borrow. And I think it's not reasonable to borrow to take a vacation, but to borrow to invest in yourself or your business, that's a wonderful way to do it.
So what's the first thing somebody should invest in when they're borrowing? Well, I guess you said it, either production or sales, right?
That's one of the two. It's look at the limitation. And if the limitation is I got lots of productive capacity, either because I have a business where I buy from other people and that's unlimited and I sell it. So then my limitation may be sales. But even in that, if a real estate agent is so busy doing the administrative work of all the listings and sales they have, well, then the limitation will be production. And so then that real estate agent must hire administrative help. And what I'll often say to somebody, how much do you want to earn per hour? And so if somebody's got a good business and they can earn multiple hundreds of dollars per hour, great. Every time you pay somebody $20 an hour to do work that they can do, you're going to add to your bottom line. And it's looking at those things because we get emotional, especially small business. They don't want to spend money on staff and on things like that because the money is coming out of their pocket, seemingly.
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying to you. These dialogues can go in so many different ways. And if somebody wants to ask me, what is my skill set? It's asking questions, not giving answers, but asking questions.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because what I've heard from the most successful people in just about any profession is the most important skill is listening, asking questions and listening.
Yes.
Really hearing what the business owner has to say.
Yes.
Not telling them and not doing a one size fits all.
Well, except when the business has to say something that will not get the business owner where they want to go, somebody has to push back. So yes, the customer is always right and the business owner is my customer. But if the business owner establishes a goal that they want to get to, and then they're going in a direction that they think is right, but I have a suspicion it won't get them to the goal, I must skillfully ask them the question that they will see by their answers to that question. Gee, I guess that's not going to get me where I want. Exactly. Let's look at another way to go. Because what I've learned, those of us that have had adolescent children, we understand how difficult it is to tell our children something. They push back. Well, adolescents are humans on steroids. So every human is programmed to push. You're laughing at that.
It's hilarious.
I'm meeting somebody that has lived it. Okay, and so that's the key. So that I become. I don't mean I become a parent, but if I become a parent figure and continually tell my client what to do, they'll go in the opposite direction. They're human. They're normal. They're natural. And so my role has. And by the way, that was kind of how I raised my kids. And they laugh at me a lot because, Dad, don't do that. We know what you're doing. And so that my wife always says, I ain't your client. Okay. And so that it really is, the key is asking questions.
So how often do you check in with your clients?
Well, that depends on the client. Because I'm paid by the hour, I like to check in all the time, every day, hour after hour. But that's not, I don't mean that seriously, that when I finish an initial planning process, that may be anywhere from 8 to 12 hours, depending if I'm working on one-on-one or a group, and I'm comfortable either way. It just takes a little longer with a group. Then we finish that plan with a long-term, meaning where does the business want to go in long-term? Long-term can be defined. Or then I'll back that up to 3 years, and then I'll back that up to 1 year, and then I'll back up to 90 days. And so if I've made a friend in the process, I want to check in at least every 90 days. How are we doing on that plan? And then if they want to check in more often, once a month, and at the initial, sometimes every couple of weeks. And my hourly rate stays the same. I don't want to be paid by the project. I'm paid for my time. Mm-hmm. And there's never a commitment. I mean, when somebody says, how do we start? I say, we schedule a meeting. If it's a planning meeting and it's one person, it'd be 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. If it's more than one person, I'd say 3 hours. And we're going to do that until we get to finishing the plan, which could be 3 meetings, 4 meetings. And then I'll suggest you want to set up something for 90 days. If they say yes, great. I put it on my calendar, their calendar, and I don't reach out. But I also urge them to call me if they've run into a decision that they're struggling with. Give me a call. I don't run a tab, only get paid for the scheduled meetings.
Right. So do you hold them accountable? Do they feel like they have to report to you like, You're their teacher?
Well, what's interesting, that's a really good question. And I know that for many people, I serve the role of a board of directors. I'm only me, but I ask, would you like to be accountable?
Mhm.
Would you like me to check in with you? Would you like, and sometimes we'll do this if I've had somebody that doesn't do what they need to do or say they're going to do. And so we'll boil an action. How many people will you call? What will you do to, and they'll tell me. And I'll say, would you like to send me a week from Friday that you've done that? Would you like me to call you a week from Friday to just see if you've done it? Yes, please. Terrific. I'll be glad to do that. Or they'll send me something. It will totally be the client's choice. If I become a parent or a boss, I mean, how many of us resist our boss? Right. And if I become that, I stop being useful. Using a child again as an example, if my child is so angry with me that they put all their energy into defying me rather than what's in their best interest, I've stopped being useful. Well, that's the same with me and a client.
Great. Is there anything else we need to know before we wrap up?
Well, Elizabeth, as far as I'm concerned, no, I think we've done it all. But is there any other question I may have asked that you'd like an answer to?
I think I have a pretty good idea of you and your personality. You seem like you'd be wonderful to work with.
Oh, I'm great fun. I'm sorry.
What I love, and my husband would agree with this, is the pay as you go. I mean,
Yes.
a lot
Yes.
of years commitment, they want you to pay him every month, da da da. With you, that, to me, that is a vote of confidence. Because
Well, my wife was always saying, I always say I work without a net. And she says, can you do better than that? I says, my net is my competence. My net is that people want to work with me. And when I lose clients, the client that I talked about that got over $200 million, I did lose them after 5 years because I didn't know all the people in the company anymore. And I still talk to the principal that hired me. We still have a wonderful relationship. In fact, I've worked with both of his parents. And he's on my website having said nice things about me. But occasionally, not occasionally, oftentimes I am not equipped to work with hundreds of people.
right, and that's typically what happens if you're servicing the small business community. Once they become a big business, they move to somebody else. That's
Absolutely. And that's fine. And it's as your child grows up, leaves your house, you need to be thrilled with that, not angry, how do I get them back? You know?
well, wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Arnie.
It was truly a pleasure speaking with you, Elizabeth, because you're delightful to watch.